And I think a lot of that does come with forgiveness and being intentional with our time and like how do we react and respond to one another in certain situations. And part of that is that control of saying that, hey, you are going to be a person within this. There's not an expectation where I need to have that you're going to be perfect. So in that sense, when things do not happen my way, there needs to be a different response than how you're saying to overly respond. So oh shit, you there's times you just build stuff on your own. You come in and something's where you don't want it to be, or something didn't happen, and before you even have a conversation, you've already started to create some type of like anger or something within you, as opposed to in that moment, without even having to talk to the person, forgiving them and creating space for that the Holy Spirit can actually lead that situation. So then you can have, and for us, what's worked the best is conversations.
Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling Podcast. This is an incredible time of the year, and our heart, as always, is to partner with you to say a few interesting things, talk to some interesting people, so that together we can be everything God's created us to be. You might say, like the book, reach our potential. You know, here in South Florida, I remember when I first moved here, and people would call they'd call like the South Florida, or they talk about the West Coast. And the West Coast, in my mind, when I moved here, was California. They meant Tampa. You know what I mean? Anytime you heard folks talking about the West Coast, they were talking about Tampa. Mm-hmm. If they wanted to talk about California, they talked about California. Now, today is a big day. Now, I don't know when you're watching this, but we are recording this on the launch of Pumpkin at Starbucks. Now, I've got on, I'm going to tell you, my mind's going in a million different directions. Okay. So it's pumpkin spice latte or whatever launch, which is, I don't like pumpkin, but my wife loves it. And I'm sure she's already got a few today. But it's weird in South Florida because, you know, it's 100,000 degrees. And, you know, we're in the, you know, Steph will start decorating for the fall, and people wearing sweatshirts. And it's like, we dress for the winter and the fall, not based on the weather.
Right. It's based on
the calendar.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's almost September, October. It's time to pull out the sweatshirts.
Right.
Even though you just, you know, that's why, here's the thing. I don't know where you're from, but if you ever come to South Florida, bring a jacket. Now, I know that sounds really, really crazy, but the reason you need to bring a jacket is because in South Florida, all the restaurants and all the stores keep it very cold. It's kind of like if you go to New York, you don't need a coat because it's super hot in all the stores. You know, it's opposite of what you think because of the outside weather. So anyway, South Florida's an interesting place, especially during, you know, the fall and Christmas and those kind of things. It takes a little while to get used to a green Christmas.
Right.
They should write a song about that.
That's an opportunity for us.
There you go. That's right.
Green Christmas. That's actually a good idea. But I know people do look forward to the 1 or 2 days that we get cold. You know what I mean? It goes 60 or 50 degrees in the morning. Then it gets super hot midday and then cool again. That's when the leather jackets come out and the gloves and stuff.
And, you know, we have California weather. To me, California weather is, it's nice and cool at night. And it's warm during the day. Right. You know, but you can wear sweatshirts and stuff. Right. And to me, you know, we have like 3 or 4 months of that kind where the humidity goes down a little bit. You never know about Christmas. You know, there's been Christmases here where you could go swimming. Right. And then there's Christmases where it's a little chilly.
It's so confusing because all the commercials and all the media out there is just screaming out, hey, it's snowy, it's cold, but we're here. We're just like, we're sweating, man.
Yeah, it takes a little while to get used to, but it's an incredible place to live. And if you've never been here, I encourage you to come and check it out. Pastor Danny was telling me just a few moments ago that Miami Spice, I think is what he called it, where all the nice restaurants have a value menu.
Right.
They kind
Yeah,
of
a little
take
taste.
take a cue from McDonald's. I went to there's only one. I think there's one restaurant in South Florida. Let's see, what was it? I can't remember if it had a Michelin star. By the way, do you know where that came from? Like Michelin stars?
The tires.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did. They put out a book. They figure if you're going to travel on our
crazy.
tires, here's some different places
Right,
to
right,
go
right.
and eat.
Yeah.
And then it became very difficult to get one. And so
So
now
crazy.
it's like this real prestigious thing,
Right.
but it's based on tires.
Exactly.
Which makes no sense at all.
But
But anyways, right
Yeah.
now you can go to the very nice restaurant. Stephanie and I went to a pizza restaurant.
Mm.
It's the only restaurant in Florida that got mentioned in like the top 100 restaurants in the world.
Really?
Or something like that. That's the way I saw it.
Do you remember the name of it?
I can't.
Okay.
But it was one, it's
We have to
pizza
look.
that's not like pizza.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the ones that's a little bit more doughy. Okay. Or is artesian?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it was good,
Yeah.
but it's not pepperoni. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
all-
There's a whole bunch of stuff on it.
yeah, it's a whole
gotcha.
different. They didn't have Coke. you
Right.
know? Yeah,
Sparkling
it's
water
either
is still
water
Right.
or alcohol.
Exactly,
know,
right,
So,
gotcha.
but anyways, it was really good. It was really good. I'll probably go back and check it. It was a little small restaurant. The guy learned how to cook pizzas in his backyard.
What?
Yeah, he I think he used to like manage restaurants or whatever, and he thought we need to open one of our own.
Mm-hmm.
And so him and his wife, they had what do you call that? A wood fire pizza in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of messed around with it, and
That's super
now he's
cool.
one of the best pizza makers in the world.
That's super cool.
So it was. I would give him some free advertisement, but I can't remember what
the
the
name
name
of
of
it. Maybe we'll put it in the comments just so that people
That's
can have
right.
it. Yeah,
There
for
you
later.
go.
Yeah.
Yes, to have a unique pizza experience.
Yeah.
That's right. And then lastly, before we get into what we actually want to talk about, because I was thinking about multiple things at once, is I was at the mall the other day, and I have discovered what the color is.
Well,
Like
the
the
season?
last few years has been tan,
Mm.
browns. That's been like the hot color. You see that a lot. Well, what I saw a lot of the mall was orange.
Really? Is it for autumn, you think? Or that's just what it is for the
I
year?
wondered, but normally that might be a few things, but I mean, it was everywhere.
Oh, that's interesting.
In the shirts, in the jeans, in the shoes. So we'll see. I think it's what do you say? Like when you do covert, I think it's a covert thing of the WNBA. They're trying to
You
get
are in there.
they're trying to
Okay.
get their they want to make what the guys
Right.
make. You
Right,
hear
right,
that all
right.
the time. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
because when you think of the WNBA, you think of that orange color,
Mhm.
and so we shall
See.
we shall see. Anyway, Stanley is with me today.
Hello.
It's great to have you. Thanks for hanging out. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about something all of us deal with at one level or another, and that is forgiveness. And I was talking with Stanley before we actually turned on the cameras, and in my mind, I think of if you're the one forgiving, that injury, just like a physical injury, comes at different levels. There's like being offended, cut off in traffic, and then it can go up a notch. Maybe it's somebody you've worked with for the last year or whatever, and then you hear they say something about you, or they don't show up to your party or something to that effect, and you actually have to work through it. And then there is, the like the big offense where you're going through a divorce, or you get let go at a place you've worked for a long time, or a friend or hurt you, or a lot of times it'll happen in the workplace where two owners and one feels like the other stabbed him in the back, where that really happened. And so to me, there are all those different levels, and kind of how you work through it is different depending on it, because your pain is different.
Right.
You're a relatively young guy.
I am.
Have you experienced each of those?
I think so. And as for those who do know me, and I'm pretty sure you can attest to that, I'm pretty positive about life in general, so I don't necessarily allow things to sit and kind of grow in me. So I think part of that is because and unintentionally I've kind of learned how to forgive pretty
Mm,
quickly so that it doesn't fester and become something. But as I gain more responsibility and I become more of an adult and I have more burdens on my heart, I think I'm presented with more opportunity to have to forgive. You know what I mean? So just like that, when I'm driving and somebody cuts me off and you have that just what? Like, you know what I mean? What am I supposed to do in this moment? And I think what you have to do is like you kind of have to quantify like what how big is this and
right.
what is it worth? You know what I mean? Is it easier for me to react and like maybe swerve so this person can feel how I feel? You know what I mean? Because I can't speak to you. Or is it about humbling yourself and making it what it is, which is just a situation, and allowing yourself to forgive that person? You don't know what they're going through, you don't know
Mm,
what's happening at the moment, but you can control you,
mm,
and so I think that was a beautiful opportunity. It happened not too long ago. It was a real situation, but that I felt like, is it really worth it to
mm,
like allow this to become more than what it is? You know what I mean? And so I felt it in that way, as well as I think, and this is something I was thinking about last night when I was thinking about this episode was I feel like I had to forgive my parents,
mm,
for the things that they didn't know that they were doing. You know what I
mm,
mean? Where I know a lot of um, I know a lot of different kids who've grown up who are the first generations in their families. We kind of deal with the same things with
mm,
immigrant parents. You know what I mean? Like their consciousness towards like this social environment isn't the same. So our life isn't ran the same. So how much attention you get, the intentionality when it comes to how do they talk to you, what do they talk to you about, how do they equip you, and so forth. That isn't always the same. It isn't always up to par, to which, like, let's say with my kids, I would probably do a little bit more for. So I think specifically, I've found myself having to like forgive my dad.
mm,
You know what I mean? For not having those conversations with me, for not equipping me the way that I felt like I would have bettered me. You know what I mean? But I found myself being like, what if he just didn't know?
right.
What if he was just doing his best? You know what I mean? And then where can I start to take off from there? You know what I mean? So yeah, so I found that there was a lot of folks who I was close to who didn't forgive their
Mm,
their mom or dad or cousin or whomever has probably wronged them or probably didn't help push them forward, and
mm,
do their job. And I could see such just anger in them, and it doesn't just stay between them and the parent or
right.
them and the person. It festers out into the environment. They're very short with you. Their temperament is very like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Unforgiveness is so dangerous in that
right,
sense, and especially family, because
mm,
friends, a lot of times you get hurt and then everybody moves on. Yeah, I'm not saying healthful in a healthy way, but
mhm,
you're not seeing them every day
right,
because you got hurt, something happened, it broke up the relationship. But
mhm,
family often you're still there.
right,
You either see them at Christmas, or like
right,
you say, it's parents or children or
mhm,
brother or sister. And so if you don't deal with it, it's incredibly destructive
right,
because you can't even get away from it.
right,
And I think, like you were saying, the biggest danger, or I won't say danger, the destructiveness of being hurt is not the necessarily the pain itself. I mean,
mhm,
depending on what it is. I
yeah,
mean, but for the most part, it's when we don't deal with it,
yeah. What
and
does it manifest?
right,
Mm,
it's like physically, if there's something you don't take care of,
yeah,
then it can develop into something
yeah.
much greater.
Like
And I
mold.
yeah.
You get that little patch and you're just like, it's fine. And the next thing you know, you open the wall again, it's spread out all through that. I think, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta per se eradicate it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they do. Like with the cancer,
Right. Right.
they come in and get rid of it the best that they can. And I think when it comes to forgiveness, we don't see unforgiveness in that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, well, you hurt me,
Yeah.
you don't deserve for me to forgive.
Right.
And so then we hang,
On
we hang on to it.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is it is destructive in that it comes out at other times.
Yeah.
So even a small hurt not dealt with effectively
Mhm.
can mess up a marriage.
Seriously. Yeah.
Because if you feel, I think a common one is disrespect,
Mhm.
and people, um, feel disrespected, whether they were or not. But let's say they, at school they got made fun of or something, and then they carry that with them, and
Mhm.
so their spouse says something. Maybe their spouse means something by it, maybe they don't.
Right.
Like you said, maybe somebody cuts them off in traffic
Mhm.
and it has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
They didn't see them, they're late
Mhm.
for work,
Mhm.
whatever,
Mhm.
but they feel it as disrespect,
Mhm.
and so they over respond.
Yeah.
And then now they're got a ticket or worse
Yeah.
because they over respond, or now they're fighting with their spouse, or um,
Ooh, could you explain that though? Like the over response. There's a response, but there's over responding.
yeah. Well, you think what is the right level of response if your spouse says something that angers you or
Mhm.
something that you disagree with, right? There is well, I don't agree with that. Let's have
Mhm.
a conversation
Right.
and let's you and I work this out.
Yeah.
And then there's the yelling,
Right.
and the door slamming, and
Mhm.
then their response. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's escalated to the point that, it takes you a couple of days to deal with it. And
Right.
I think the same thing is true with, somebody, even if you think somebody cuts you off and they, you know, tell you you're number one as they do it,
Mm.
still you think, well, what's the right response to that?
Right.
Is it to, honk and get right on their tail
Right.
and risk them over respond,
Yeah.
or is it just like, you, going on with your life,
Yeah.
how, I think that the, the, for all of us, and I've been trying to work on this, is my natural response is to get even,
Sure.
right? But what if my natural response was to forgive?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean,
That's good.
that you're a mat.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you let people walk on you, but that's what Jesus from is all about forgiveness. He
Yeah.
knew when he created us, right,
Mhm.
that we were going to screw up.
Mhm.
And yet he devised the plan for reconciliation.
Yeah.
So what if, we tend to get married thinking everything's going to be perfect, or we get in
Mhm.
our car to go to work thinking nothing's going to happen,
Happen.
or and
Yeah.
I'm not saying you think bad things are going to
Sure.
happen, but I just
You're
think if we
aware.
prepared ourselves
Mhm.
more for forgiveness.
Mhm.
And that means you're going to keep short accounts.
Mhm.
You're going to check your emotional, it's just like we came in here, we're recording this first thing in the morning,
Mhm.
right? So you think, what are you bringing in with you?
Yeah. You said I was grumpy.
Well, yeah, sleepy.
Oh, okay,
I
sleepy.
said grumpy. I meant sleepy.
Yeah, I
But
promise there's no one that I need to forgive that I'm aware of right now.
but you think that we do carry those things with us.
Yeah.
And then somebody says you're grumpy, and we're
Mhm.
like, well, I just got cut off in traffic,
Mhm.
or I just had an argument with a coworker or a boss
Yeah.
or something like that.
Mhm.
And in ministry, I've lots of times pastors become incredibly bitter because ministry is all about people,
Mhm.
and our peopleness is everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you work in an office, you work around a few people,
Mhm.
and maybe you work in the public, where you're selling jeans or something, but they're there, they're gone. It's not the same people. Where
Right.
in ministry,
Right.
you're dealing with, depending on the size of the ministry,
Mhm.
tens, hundreds, thousands of
Mhm.
people, and all of them are people.
Yep.
And so they're all going to respond as people.
People. Mhm.
And so I think ministry really lends itself to being hurt,
Yeah.
and then ministry is like an art. I think the same thing can happen, if you're a singer or in the arts, because it's very subjective. So it's subjective of whether you're good, and then you're dealing with people who bring all their peopleness,
Mm.
and so you're going to get hurt, and it's like, how are you going to deal with that,
Dude.
especially when you're young.
Mhm.
As you get older, you realize that's a reality.
Mhm.
I think when you're young, you forget that. You
Mm.
think that. I remember thinking, you know, even like with staffing, you got to get a staff that's effective, and all the things that we all learn about leadership when it comes to staffing. But we also have to remember that there's not a perfect staff.
Right.
And what I mean by that is we all bring our sense of peopleness. So if I'm going to let you go, it's really important that I know what I'm going to, what I'm looking for. Why am I letting you go?
Right.
Not just maybe you and I don't get along, or maybe I'm frustrated with you, because the next person I hire is going to have something wrong with them.
They're just gonna bring something else.
Right. They're going to have something wrong with them. So it's like, I got to say, well, Stanley's always late, let's say. And it's like, and we can't move forward as an organization because he's always late.
Yeah.
Well, then then we're going to hire somebody. If nothing else, they're going to at least be on time. So we're going to fix that problem. It's not a relational issue.
Right.
And I'm not, so I think, those are the things I think that are really important, that allow us to be a little more freer
Yeah.
in forgiving,
Yeah.
one another. Same with our spouse. A lot of times we think, well, if I could just get them to,
Do the thing I said.
right,
Right.
understand, that somehow we're going to, and it's like, well, they're always going to be themselves.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just think, again, so that you're ready
Yeah.
to forgive.
I think because in my marriage, I'm continuously learning this as we continue to develop. We're 8 years now, and they said that's the sweet spot, which I can attest to. Like right now, I think we are the happiest we've ever been. Like we've moved at least 5 times. We have twins. Everyone's just started school just now, and all this stuff. But the way that we've been going about it has been extremely peaceful. And I think a lot of that does come with forgiveness and being intentional with our time, and like how do we react and respond to one another in certain situations. And part of that is that control of saying that, hey, you are going to be a person within this. There's not an expectation where I need to have that you're going to be perfect. So in that sense, when things do not happen my way, there needs to be a different response than how you're saying to overly respond. So she didn't. You, there's times you just build stuff on your own. You come in and something's where you don't want it to be, or something didn't happen, and before you even have a conversation, you've already started to create some type of like anger or something within you, as opposed to in that moment, without even having to talk to the person, forgiving them and creating space for that. The Holy Spirit can actually lead that situation. So then you can have, and for us, what's worked the best is conversations, being extremely quick, that as soon as something happens, that we're conversing with one another. Because what I know as men, and I've saw it with a lot of, or I spoke with a lot of guys, and they've kind of agreed, we tend to need to process. When something happens right then and there, we're like, give me space so that so I could figure this out. I feel like it does work, but the other person needs to be involved in that processing. That works for us. It might not work for anyone else. But that person needs to be a part of that process. This is how I'm feeling. This is what happened. This is how I wish it did happen. And then just giving that person the opportunity to actually speak into it. Now it might not always work. It might not always be positive, but at least you're doing your due diligence to making sure that you're putting all the steps, you're taking all the right steps to get to peace, which I think in the end, that's what we're kind of searching for when we're thinking about forgiveness. Is that kind of,
Yeah.
because you
Well,
talk about the bruises and so forth like that.
yeah, I think, I was thinking as you were sharing there about how often we, when people, like you were saying, you forgive, you know, before you even have the conversation.
Mm.
And there's just a humility in that, where it's like, you hurt me and I forgive you. When we do talk, I'm not, reminding you that I've forgiven you,
Right.
right? Because that's not
Right.
sincere
Right. It's not.
forgiveness. I think a lot of times we're looking for a way out of the conflict as opposed to truly reconciliation.
Right.
Because like, hey, if I hurt you, I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, right, that's not really a pathway to forgiveness, because it's not a real apology.
Yeah.
Now, I might not know that I hurt you, right? And so I think it's okay for me to
That's a thing too.
apologize, say my intention wasn't to hurt you,
Exactly.
but I need to be clear about the fact I did hurt you.
Yeah.
Not if I hurt you or if I said something. It's like, no, I did.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I disagree with the fact that it should hurt you. And I think marriages and businesses, and this is the biggest screw up I think in relationships is we argue, we end up fighting about what's not the problem. We end up
Yes.
fighting about what is the, like what.
It's like a surface thing. We're not actually getting to the root of anything.
We never get to it because you say I always use the common one that married couples deal with is you're never home. Right. And it's like, well, I am.
Right.
And so now we argue about whether you're home or not, which is really not the problem.
I left at 9 and I came back at 10.
Right. And well, yeah, but you didn't do this.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the real conversation ought to be, why do you feel that I'm not home?
Oh,
what would
so
make
hard.
you feel that I'm home?
Yeah.
But our pride, it's like, 'cause especially if I intentionally came home an hour early to fix the problem, and yet you still aren't pleased by it.
Right.
Now, but you can never fix it.
Yeah.
Maybe your expectation is crazy, right? Maybe it's like, well, if I've got a job or if I've got a whatever, I can't be home that much. But a lot of couples never get to it because they never really have that conversation.
Right.
They just argue
Yeah.
about whether, and then, like I said, as a pastor, they'll come up to me and they'll say, man, pray for me.
Right.
My husband or wife, they just don't ever think I'm home.
Right.
And it's like, and it's sad because it's not like a difficult conversation. I mean, it takes humility, but it's not difficult to say, well, why do you feel that way?
Seek
And what would
clarity.
make you?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would make you feel that, you're always grumpy.
Yeah.
And I'm not either.
Right.
Well, you would be too if you had to deal with the,
Exactly.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, what makes you think I'm always grumpy? What is it? How is it that I'm responding? Because everybody grows up differently. And so they read everything differently.
Yeah.
But we never get to that.
Yeah.
Same thing happens, and why in the workplace it's so important to document. Hey, you're never here.
Right.
I'm always here. Right. And then you get mad, and then the person, let's say they do get let go, and then they're out telling everybody, I don't know why they let me go. And I think that's, again, clear communication and documentation is so important because people may not agree, but at least it's there. And then as a believer, the Holy Spirit can deal with that,
Right.
in my life and your life.
Yeah.
But when it's just perceptions, it's just an argument. And I want to talk, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to mention to the folks who are listening today or watching, on the other side, when you screw up and you are the one who needs forgiveness. Because a lot of times, I talked this weekend to a gentleman who asked for prayer. He had lost his family, he had screwed up, and again, in ministry, you get sadly the opportunity to talk to a lot of folks that have regret over something that they've done, and we all do.
Yeah.
I get to talk to them, but we've all been down that road where we. So let me give you a few things that I think are important. One is the apology. Is the humbling. If you're going to apologize, right? If I hurt somebody, I hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And that means you have to discipline yourself not to say if, and you have to discipline yourself not to blame somebody. I'm sorry. I was just tired.
Right.
Now, maybe you get to the, I was tired and how can I do better to rested so I don't do that. But because that doesn't feel like an apology to me.
Right.
Right? I mean, we're all tired. So now it's not your fault. It's your boss's fault or your friend's fault or whatever. And then, then I respond, well, if you didn't play golf all the time, you wouldn't be tired. Or if you didn't go shopping or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like, really apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And then the other thing is, depending on the, how much, what the hurt is, you have to be patient. And that's the hardest part of reconciliation. Is if I hurt you, especially at a deep level, and then you say you realize it, you did it, you hated it, you look back on it, the regret is true, the apology sincere. I mean, you really want this to work, whether it's a relationship or a job or whatever. Well, you've got to give that person time.
Yeah.
The two things that have to happen on both sides of that is, if I'm the one who offended, I've got to give you time to rebuild that trust.
Yeah.
And the harder I push,
Right.
the longer it's
Further
going to
ago.
take,
Yeah, the
and the
further
less
you push
likely
away.
it's going to work,
Yeah.
right? And you have to discipline yourself if you're going to forgive to truly forgive, which I
Right.
think is what you ought to do. In other words, if you're going to reconcile the relationship,
Yeah.
it's one thing if you had to put boundaries and it's not a safe relationship or a safe place to work, but if you can't go back to it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't every time bring it up. Oh, you remember,
Right. You
because
used to.
because you can't you can't win. That's
Yeah.
not going to help the relationship to move forward. And to me, those are two major mistakes I see people make.
Yeah.
It's the one who makes a mistake is, hey, I'm sorry. They feel sorry and they so badly want to go back
Right.
to the way that it is.
Right.
But the person who's, they're working through all this stuff. Can
Exactly,
I
yeah.
trust this person? Are they going to do it again?
Which is
And-
fair too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they're mourning what
Right.
they had
Right.
because it's going to have to, you got to rebuild all that.
Right.
So you got to give them time. And then the other mistake that I make is that once somebody makes a mistake, it's bullets, for the rest of that relationship.
Yeah.
And that person never gets, they may get out from underneath it for a month, but every time there's a disagreement, let's say,
Yeah.
an argument, that comes back up,
Yeah.
and you just have to, again, that takes discipline on both sides. I have to discipline myself to say, I'm feeling
Right. That's right.
like this is, and maybe at another time I can say, hey, you know what, Stanley, when you did this, it reminded me of the feelings I had. And then we can work through that.
Right.
But if I just,
Yeah.
go back to, what it's just like when you, or
Right.
you remember, don't you?
Right.
Then we're not going to progress.
Right.
And, I hate that. I hate that so many relationships are destroyed over just a lack of communication. Either we don't have the humility to say what needs to be
usually what it
said,
is.
or the courage
Right.
to say what we need to say.
Yeah. Ugh, man. I always feel that the hardest thing is it's not that it's the most simplest thing, because it's hard in what we have to do to build up to get to that point, which is our pride. The biggest thing is our pride, where it's so hard to let go of it, to put yourself in a vulnerable state, even with the person you spending your life with. You know what I mean? And I think, yeah, man, I've always found that, like, even your relationship with God, it's like, it's not how many times you can pray. It's not how many times you can read your Bible and all this other stuff. Is like, how much are you willing to surrender to Him? You know what I mean? And that, like, that releasing that power is what I've found has been the most difficult thing for me, and even other people that I do life with. It's like, if this thing happens, can I give it up to God? Or am I gonna spend several days trying to handle it myself and be like, oh no, I'm gonna talk to this person. Oh, I'm gonna go talk to this person. Let me go to my therapist. Let me go da 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 da. As opposed to just sitting with God and be like, hey, look, this is happening. I really need your help in this situation, and just allowing Him to do what He has to do. But of course, being mindful and being available to actually follow whatever He gives you. But yeah, man, that's
That's a great benefit of being a believer. I mean, you
Right.
can imagine without any faith at all, you've got nothing to
don't know.
turn to. And you've got no reason to not hold it against them,
right.
in that kind of, and in ministry, the number of times that people have walked away without the courage to tell you. And the reason is because they know it's going to hurt you.
Right.
So
right.
rather than deal with the hurt, because there's nothing you can do to not make it hurt.
Yeah.
It's like your children, if they're going to leave, which can even be a healthy thing, right? They go to Alaska to do whatever.
Yeah.
It's always going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that child has to get over knowing mom and dad are going to be happy for us, but it's going to be painful to
Yeah.
actually tell them. And the same thing is true, I think, in any work environment. But I know in ministry, it's like all of a sudden somebody's gone,
Yeah.
and now you're having to deal with that.
It sets
hurt.
everything back. It
And-
sets so much. Literally. Nikita and I were walking yesterday. I picked her up from work, and we went for a little walk just to kind of like converse and like hang out. And she's gotten this new job. She's a manager in it, and she's just learning all these new skills and all the places that she's weak in. And one of the ones that we were able to agree with, it's conflict. I'm very conflict averse, meaning like I want everything to just work the way that it's supposed to. I don't want to, I don't need to, don't want to have tough conversations. You know what I mean? Even though I'd have to, like I'm a director, I'm leading a lot of people and so forth like that. And so my dream is that everybody just does what they have to do, and I'm there to encourage them. And I work hard to make sure that they feel supported and that they're equipped and all that other stuff. But then there's always going to be these situations where there needs to be realignment. You know what I mean? There needs to be a tough conversation of that. You said that you're going to do this, but you're not doing it, and all this other stuff. And she was just like, yes, that's where I'm finding like the biggest stress in my heart right now is that I, I'm constantly putting myself in a situation where I'm losing either time, energy, or something like that, just doing something as opposed to having the hard conversation. You know what I mean? And so like that was just funny that you said that because that was literally the thing that we're like, when we don't do it, we cause confusion because then the person doesn't have direction. And that's your responsibility to give that person that direction, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? Of course, you do it with love, but there is a need. Just as a parent, like you can't just let your kid. Oh, I don't want to hurt his feelings or something like that. So I won't. You just
Right.
let him do whatever. That's a that causes a disservice to the child. You know what I mean? The
Mhm.
same thing as your employees, your staff, your wife, your husband, whatever like that. You do them a disservice when you don't have those tough
It's
conversations.
selfish. It's
It,
selfish not to
well, don't do
share
that. I'm still working on it, man.
sharing what needs to be. Well, I think though to be able to realize that it's
Mm,
selfish to not share what needs to be shared
right,
because it's not about you, it's about me.
right,
You're not going to want to hear it.
right.
It's going to hurt you.
Yeah,
But at the same time, if the person loves you,
mm,
then you need to hear it,
right.
right? If there's a truth you have
Mm,
and you won't share it with me, that's just selfish.
yeah,
If there's a truth I have, and a lot of times as employers, the truth that we have is we've let somebody go or we devalued them in our mind.
hmm,
Stanley can't do that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And then
Right,
I don't tell you,
right, right.
you
Yep.
know, that's so unfair. I
Hmm.
don't want to get up and speak every weekend and everybody out there think, wow, he's lost it or
Right.
he's not very good.
Mm,
And nobody have the courage to tell me.
right, right,
You know, that's not only not, I can't move, I can't go where I need to go, but it's
hmm,
also God may want to use you to move me in another
right.
direction and to go in a new direction. I need that truth,
Yeah.
you know?
Dang.
So anyways, guys, we are out of time. There's a lot we could talk about. I
Yeah.
know you guys as well. If you want to catch the teaching, we'll put it in the link in below. You can go to Potential Church's YouTube page. It's there, or you can go to the website, potentialchurch.com, and pick it up there. But we all have times where we need to be forgiven, and we all have times when we need to forgive. And the great thing about being a Christ follower is we have an amazing example, Jesus himself. And he said that we ought to forgive because he has forgiven us again and again and again. So, hey, be intentional, forgive. And you might be surprised to what levels of success forgiveness actually takes you. Hey, if you haven't purchased the book Potential, I hope you'll do that. We really enjoyed writing it, working on another one. Probably that one took 15 years. I don't know if the next one will take that long or not.
Maybe 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hoping a little quicker. So anyways, lots of content on the page here. If we said something that was encouraging to you, it just takes a click of a button, hit share, and it could make a big difference in somebody's life. We do a live stream on Sunday nights, and we'll be back here with a brand new episode next Thursday. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Troy Gramling Podcast. God bless. Thanks, Stanley.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time.